Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, everybody. I'm really excited to talk about this today. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts, but first, we're going to talk about my life on two wheels and how I got into it. So, with that being said, okay, before we jump into it, I forgot I put this slide in. What do you think, which country has the highest motorbike use in the world? Just a little trivia to get everybody thinking about international motorbike usage. Obviously, it's in Asia. Put in the chat what you think. A, B, C, or D. I'll give you like 20, maybe less than 20 seconds. Just on a whim, what do you think? I can't see the chat, so I don't really know if people are popping it in, but just let me know.
Oh yeah, we've got a load of answers here, Maria.
Okay,
There's
okay, okay.
a couple of C's, a couple of D's.
Ooh, love
Um, I B, so two more for Thailand there. Another
Okay.
one for Vietnam. I think it's probably between B and C actually. I've not counted exactly, but that's what
Right.
it looks like.
Okay, here we go. B, Thailand with 87% of motorbike usage. It's pretty crazy there. I will tell you what. I mean, as you can see in this photo, there's a lot of motorbikes on the road. So it's a great place to learn. And it's also a great place to be scared off by motorbikes, I suppose. All right. Now that we've wet our palate for motorbiking, I just want to tell you a little bit about how to start your own motorbike journey. I know we've got different levels of how everybody has experienced motorbikes here before. We may have some people that really know exactly what they're doing on a bike. So, thanks for coming and listening anyway. And absolutely, if there's any questions in the chat or like anything that you can add, go ahead and do it. Like, let's make this a discussion because I don't feel like I'm the end all be all to knowledge about motorbikes. So we'll start off with an about me. We'll talk about types of bikes that you can buy, best destinations that I feel like you could start riding, licenses, and then nuts and bolts of like safety, which will be like really brief. And then some biker groups and resources that you can continue your learning journey on. Okay, so a little bit about me. My name's Maria, if you don't know me, Maria Mallory, and I do work for the Nomadic Network. So I'm like really excited that this is my first presentation with us because I do a lot of hosting and I do a lot of marketing for our events. So I'm the marketing manager for TNN. And obviously when I'm not working, which is, often, I'm also riding my motorbike and traveling. I live in Cincinnati with my husband and my dog, and I have a scooter here. But I learned abroad, so I want to talk about that a little bit today. So go ahead and friend me if you haven't already at Maria the Wild. I'm on TikTok and Instagram. Okay, thanks. So my motorbike journey started when I studied abroad with my now husband in Chiang Mai, Thailand. It was a 4-month little trip to Chiang Mai. We were living there, so we decided we would rent a motorbike for 4 whole months because that's kind of what you did whenever you went to Thailand. As we've learned, Thailand is a place that has a lot of motorbikes, so it is the way to get around. It's a really fun way to get around too. So at the beginning, I was not so confident in riding or driving myself, but I was definitely confident in chilling on the back and he was driving us around. So that was fun for me. Obviously, Thailand, if you don't know about it, is a really beautiful country. So there's a lot to explore. This is a photo we took when we went to the islands of Thailand. But we did a lot of trips around just Chiang Mai, which is the mountainous part of Thailand. And those are great little trips, little jaunts with your friends when you're studying abroad and you are in a pack and you're just going around together. So you have that confidence when you're in a group setting. Second, I returned back to Asia to study, well, to teach English. I was teaching kindergarteners, which I'll show you in a second. That's when we actually purchased a motorcycle for ourselves. We wanted to make sure that we had something longer term, so we actually owned this. We bought it from like a store when we got there. We were there for about 10 months and I was teaching English to these little kiddos. So I definitely needed some transportation to and from our apartment. So I was in the schools and in our apartment, and I was teaching myself at that point how to drive. So it was great. Taiwan is also a beautiful country. It's very mountainous as well. So it has a lot of really cool little trails that you can go along. And it's extremely fun for hiking and stuff too. If you want to hit me up, if you're ever going to Taiwan, I'd love to tell you about it. Third, a really fun story. It was right before the pandemic hit. It was March 2020, and I was going for a work trip to Vietnam. So I was in Hanoi, Vietnam by myself, and I rented a motorcycle, which I really wasn't too sure that I could even do it at that point. It was a manual motorcycle, and I was really afraid to be doing this on my own because at that point I only was comfortable with motorbikes. I had taken a class in which I learned how to ride a manual, but I wasn't super confident in it. But I just said yes to the experience because I was like, you know what? I'm here. I really wanted to do this. This was on my bucket list. I only had like 2 days, so I took an overnight trip. And it was like one of the best experiences that I ever had. It was just me and my guide because it was during the beginning of the pandemic. There weren't a whole lot of people in Vietnam traveling. So we just took a solo trip essentially around the mountains of Hanoi. And it was such a fulfilling experience for me. It was so liberating as a female to just be able to do this, say yes to this, and to see these beautiful sort of views all throughout Vietnam. So I had an extremely, extremely great trip. And that also influenced my decision to come back to Cincinnati and do a lot more riding here. So I think it was, I already had a scooter before I went to Vietnam for that trip, but it just, made me that much more excited to ride the scooter that I purchased back in Cincinnati, Ohio. So that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about today is riding back in the United States. Here's my husband on my 150cc Buddy genuine scooter, which I'll talk a little bit more about the type of bike that I have and types of bikes you can buy. But it's great. It fits both of us whenever he wants to ride us around, or it just, I feel comfortable handling it. He feels comfortable handling it. It's a good size bike, just for short commutes and not highway or anything like that. So that's the backstory. And just a couple things about also why I felt like I wanted to buy a bike after traveling. I just felt like, hey, this is a great option for people that care about the environment. If you want to offset a big box car driving you around all the time when you don't really have stuff to lug around, what's the point? That's just a whole bunch of excess weight you don't necessarily need. So if you care about the environment, it's a great way to offset your imprint. I hate driving a car, I'm not gonna lie. So number two, I just hate driving a car. It's way more fun to drive a scooter. So I definitely encourage you to do it if you don't really like driving that much. Number three, I can park it almost anywhere and for free most of the time. With my scooter, at least in Cincinnati, I don't know how it is in every single city, but they don't really care if I park it on the side of the street. So I'll just, be between like a trash can and a street light, pop it over there. Nobody's going to say anything. I don't get any tickets or anything. Well, yet. I mean, it's fine. It's all legal. We're good. So I do that. But there is designated motorcycle parking that you can put bigger bikes in. So they always have those for free as well. So it's like just a nice way to offset gas costs, parking costs. Like I said, it's more affordable. And number five, it reminds me of my travels so much. It's just like that feeling. It's just absolutely indescribable. If you know, you know. If you've been on a bike before, the feeling of dew on your skin, going through a cloud, getting to smell like the fires that are burning as you're passing through them. I just think it's so cool. And actually what's neat is we always ride downtown in Cincinnati on this parkway and we pass a pickle factory. And every time we pass it, it smells like pickles. And you would not get that experience if you were in a car, I swear. Like me and my husband are just like, you know what we just passed, and we laugh about it every single time because it smells like pickles. So you wouldn't get that if you didn't have a bike. Okay, a little bit of water. Hope everyone liked that backstory. Thanks, Sarah. I saw the thumbs up. All right, so types of bikes. This is something that really confused me at the beginning, so I feel like I just want to go over it a little. Motorcycles in general are larger and heavier. The engine is inside the frame, so typically you'll be straddling it instead of being able to put your feet in the front. So you sit on some pegs on the outside. The speeds are a lot higher. Obviously, they can exceed 160 miles per hour. And there's way more variety in like the types and the shapes and the engine sizes. So motorcycles are a lot more varied. But these can be automatic transmission, but more typically you'll find that these are manual. So you just have to learn how to ride a manual if you want to buy a motorcycle. This is what I have, a motorbike, which I also refer to as a scooter. I mean, that lingo is like kind of interchangeable to me. Maybe it's not to other people, but whatever. These are usually smaller engine sizes between 50 to 250cc. Mine is a 150, so it's right in the middle. It's got that step-through frame so you can put your feet in the front. So it's like you can vary how you sit on it, which is nice, but it is slower and usually it's an automatic. So it is easier to ride because you just like, turn it on and you're ready. You don't have to worry about foot pegs or anything like that. One thing that confused me as well, Vespa is a brand of scooter. So sometimes people will call these Vespas, but that's not necessarily true. It's like whenever you're drinking champagne, somebody says champagne, and you're like, no, but is it from Champagne, France? Because if it isn't, then it's just sparkling water. And I wouldn't say that to people, but that's just a fact. I'm not like that, but I'm just saying like that's what I'm saying. If it's not a Vespa, then you can't really call it a Vespa. So it's just a motorbike. Cool. Glad we all understand now. Cool, cool, cool. A moped is the smallest. So it's less than 50cc typically. It looks a lot like a bike. Obviously, there's only a single rider that can usually get on it unless you like really want to pack on there. I don't know. Typically, they only go about 30 miles per hour, and you don't need a license to drive this because of the smaller engine sizes, and we'll talk a little bit about licenses. But if it's under 50cc, typically you don't need a license. So that's kind of nice. And then, of course, yes, it's got foot pedals like a bike too. I don't see a lot of these around just because I don't think they're that like as convenient to be able to get to the places that you need to get to sometimes. But it really depends on what you're looking for in a bike. So this is just like an illustration of different types of bikes with the names. So obviously in the middle, the chopper, I feel like that conjures up an idea of, those real typical Harley Davidson riders going cross country across the United States. They're like sitting low with their hands up high. There's all kinds of different bikes, so it really just depends if you want to like span the country or not. Maybe that's the right bike for you because it probably is a little more comfortable ride, but I kind of like the look of like a naked bike or a sport bike or something more so. All right, just average pricing. And I think Renee is here. So thank you to scootersfornewbies.com. This is really great information just as the range of, I think this is for new bikes and this can be confirmed if she's in here. But this is the range, I think, for new bikes. If you have a 50cc, it's between $1,500 to $4,000. 100 to 200 is between $2,000 and $5,700. And then for a larger bike, over 200cc is like thousands of dollars. I mean, it really just depends on what you're looking for. But for me, I'm like happy to tell you that I think I paid $1,700 for my used scooter, which is great. I mean, that's a great price. I think it was a 2009 and it had a low mileage, but it works perfectly. And it was my first bike too. So it was a good intro bike. I was like, I don't want to spend too much because who knows how much I'll be riding this. I did end up, riding it a lot, but I would say a used bike is a really great intro bike. So we'll talk a little bit about where you can buy used bikes. Okay, best destinations. Who's still with me? This is the fun part. This is the travel part, okay, before we get into the nuts and bolts. So here's a loop that I would definitely recommend. My husband and I took it when we were in Thailand. He was my boyfriend at the time. Now he's my husband. Hey, Grant. And if you see the underline, that means I linked it. So I can send this presentation out and I have like a link of just YouTube videos of these travels so that you can kind of see the route that you'll be on. So the Chiang Mai to Pai loop is awesome. It's beautiful and easy to navigate. Oh, he took Sarah on it too. So you know all about it. You can stop along at waterfalls and temples, and it's a huge backpacker destination. So you're definitely not going to get lost. There's a lot of people that take it, and you can always just follow them along all the different windy roads. A tip, it's more lush in the rainy season, so just bring a raincoat for some dew, but that's definitely a nice time to be riding, and it's a lot less hot. In the USA, I've driven this in a car. I have not actually ridden this because I don't ride on the highways yet, but the Blue Ridge Parkway, obviously in North Carolina and Virginia, is one of the best highways in the United States, especially during the fall. So the weather will be perfect in the fall as well for a bike trip, and you can camp in the Great Smoky Mountains. The windy mountain roads are a lot less ideal for large cars. So even if you had an RV or something, I would say don't do that. Do it on a bike. It's much more immersive and it's much easier to actually like wind through and stop along the way. If you're traveling to Vietnam, which I highly recommend, Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City, all the way from the north to the south, is a really awesome route that is on my bucket list still. So I like kind of dabbled in it, but I really want to go from north to south. What's nice is you can make your way through the entire country with really beautiful scenery, and it's super affordable. But what's cool, typically, I mean, I'm not sure about the pandemic, how that's put a hold on it, but when backpackers are leaving Vietnam, they're selling their bikes that they have purchased in Vietnam. So typically in one of the two cities, you can find a used bike and purchase it and then ride, take it all the way up to the north or all the way to the south, and then pawn it back off on another backpacker. So it's really easy to just flip bikes. Italy also has a large scooter population. Gonna be absolutely beautiful if you go north to south. Can't say that I've done this, but I really want to. So I did link some travelers in this video that have done it. You can see vineyards, Italian Alps, Dolomites, the Amalfi Coast, so many beautiful sights. Obviously, Italy's a really easily traveled country. Motorbikes are aplenty, and it's a lot safer, obviously. And then, you know, people are really friendly and there's incredible food. So I linked motorcycletoursitaly.com. That seems like a really good place for you to kind of start if you wanted some sort of a tour that someone takes you along. Indonesia. All right, so we did this one. You know, if you take a scooter, it's really easy. Tourism is so popular in Indonesia. It's actually like there's a lot of traffic. So looping around the island of Bali would be really a nice way to go. Tourism is higher in Bali, so finding bike rentals is easy, and so is navigating the area. Obviously, it's great weather, lots of temples to check out. Just bring the right clothing to cover up with because you can't like expose your shoulders and stuff. So just take note of that. But try going during low season or during early morning hours because it is crazy traffic in Bali. I don't know, has anyone been to Indonesia? Has anyone been to Bali? Go ahead and pop it in the chat because you can attest to it probably. And lastly, another one in the United States, the Pacific Coast Highway. This is a great one to drive in a car, but obviously awesome to drive on, you guessed it, a scooter. The weather's great year round in California. There's so many options if you want to like sightsee or camp, so you can just stop off. You can go from the bottom of California up through Oregon and Washington even. So it's real easy to navigate. You're not going to get lost when there's just one coast along one side of you. Like if it's on your left, you're going north, you know. But definitely don't miss Big Sur or the Redwood Forest. So with that, we'll move on to licenses. Hope everyone's still with me. Okay. So what's called a motorcycle endorsement in the United States in most areas, to drive a bike bigger than 50cc, you're going to need some sort of license, legal, unless you want to ride illegally, but that's like up to you. Typically, it's called a motorcycle endorsement, and if you already have a driver's license in the United States, it's just like an M that they add to your license. So you don't really need like an extra license. You just kind of get this endorsement once you pass the tests. So it involves a written test, or you can do a driving course plus a written test. So it's kind of nice. I did the driving course plus written test, and I'll talk about that, but that's what I would recommend. Once you have the license, you can ride any engine size. So like, even though I own just a scooter that's 150cc on the smaller side, you can buy a huge motorcycle as well. So just check like what state you're in and what the requirements are for that particular state. This driving course was awesome. So I would say definitely do that. This Ohio one, I linked to the one that we did. If anyone's in Ohio and is curious, it was only $50 and we rode all day Saturday and all day Sunday. They provide the bikes, they provide like the helmets, they tell you what to wear. They do a written test beforehand. It was in a classroom, but it might have moved online since. So you just kind of do that beforehand, you know, take the test, and then you go ahead and drive. And it taught me how to write a manual. So that was really helpful for me because then I could take that information that I had to Vietnam and I could write a manual there. So I felt very prepared because of this. And I feel prepared for the roads here in the United States. So find that on your BMV website or at harleydavidson.com. They have ones too. So I linked that. This is so boring, but we're almost done. Registration and insurance. So a lot of states don't require registration, licensing, or insurance for scooters less than 50 cc. So you do not need a license or registration for your vehicle if it's under that 50 cc. So if you just want a really small bike, cool, go for it. If it's bigger than that, you are going to need to register it, but it's basically the same as for cars. So it's you just have to opt in for a fee. In Ohio, I think it's $25 a year, so it's really not very bad. And insurance is also much cheaper for a bike than it is for a car, which is a huge win. Whoop whoop. This is also important if you want to ride internationally. An international driver's license, I currently don't have. Grant, I believe, has it, so he can maybe talk a little bit about that. But it's very cheap and it allows someone to drive a private motor vehicle in any nation, basically. Um, oh, sorry, there's a typo. So you may get cheaper rates when you're renting abroad if you have this. It's needed for rentals for most vehicles outside of Southeast Asia. Like they're just not very strict about it, but if you're traveling to pretty much any other country, it might be good to have. You can get a car with it, you can get an motorbike, an RV with it, a camper van, so it's just kind of nice to have. And it's valid for like 1 to 10 years. So I forget the price, but it's not very expensive. I feel like I want to say it's $50. If anyone knows, pop it in the chat. All right, part 5, safety. Woo! I know my parents will like the fact that I'm talking about this part. All right, so some must-have clothing when you're riding, just important to note. A good helmet. I'll talk about that in the next slide, but like choose as much coverage as you feel comfortable with and replace it every 5-ish years because they do go bad. Like the padding just like gets harder and it's less effective. Eye protection is important. If you don't have a shield on your helmet, you might want some sunglasses because like a bunch of debris gets kicked up or bugs and stuff gets in your eyes. Plus it's sunny. So it's just like good to have something on your eyes to keep all that out. Leather gloves are important too. So I learned the hard way that this is very important. In my motorcycle riding class, I actually put the bike down, meaning I fell on the motorcycle. I was taking a turn and I looked down. I wasn't looking ahead, which is what you're supposed to do. And I just looked down and all of a sudden I was on the ground. I put my arms out and luckily I had leather gloves on because they would have been very scraped up if I didn't. So it's just like really important to cover your hands because those are the things you'll put down first. Closed-toed shoes are also important if you are not, on a beach in Bali. You probably will have access to closed-toed shoes. I understand that you're going to ride in sandals sometimes. Just try to make them like good sandals that stay on your feet, maybe not flip-flops. But closed-toed shoes are definitely preferred and boots that cover your ankle too, just in case you do fall. Of course, more protection is better. Same with long pants and a leather jacket. Leather jacket, bonus, you look like a badass if you have it on. So you're gonna want one. I mean, you might as well just look now. Go to all the thrift stores around you, get that leather coat, and you'll be like, well, I have to buy a bike now. I've got the coat. That's the order of operations usually. For helmets, here's a photo of me wearing both types. So the one in Vietnam when I was on motorcycles was a full face. And it's got the chin protection, which is great. You don't want your teeth to fall out. And they both have shields. So the one that I have just on my scooter in Cincinnati, I think is enough protection for the ride that I'm taking. I'm not going on highways. I'm not going super fast. So I have the 3/4 where it covers my ears. And I like that. I like the fact that it's got the shield and everything. I've done the half face in Asia. When you're renting a bike, typically that's what they'll give you is just like the cheap little guys. Whatever you can do, whatever you can feel comfortable in is fine. But like the more the merrier, of course. You want to just make sure that you feel safe because the safer you feel, the more you're going to be comfortable riding. In addition, how to stay safe. Drive defensively. I feel like my parents always told me this, and it is very true. You know how to keep yourself safe when you're driving a car. Just use that knowledge when you're riding a scooter. Ride like everyone's out to kill you. It's probably good advice to listen to, honestly, because they are, especially in the United States, they're a little bit crazy. Layer up. So as many pieces of clothing as you can to keep your body from getting injured. If you do fall down, you just don't want to get all scraped up. If nothing else, a helmet and good footwear. Those are the key. Ride in a group and during the daytime, I would say those are really good things to just remember to do. Seek out other biker groups in your area so you can do group rides in your city. If you have more people with you, the louder you are, the more people will notice you. In the daytime, the more people will notice you. You just want to make sure you're as visible as possible. And then lastly, resources. So I'm going to send these slides out so you guys have these resources if you ever want them. For buying a bike, I found mine on Facebook Marketplace. You can check that or eBay for used bikes. There's a lot of sellers. Typically, they're a little bit cheaper in the off season, like March or like right before the weather starts getting nice. People will like put their bikes and they're going to be a little more expensive because they're like, yeah, everyone's looking for a bike right now, which is fine. But just keep that in mind that off season they'll be cheaper. If you do a Google search for like motorcycle stores to find mom and pop shops near you, that's where I found like my helmet store. And I mean, there's at least like one or two in every good city. So go check those out and you can get gear or bikes or clothing. In Cincinnati, Metro Scooter is amazing. They have genuine scooters. I get mine tuned up there, and they have just like a really nice selection of scooters, and they are super nice. So check them out. Used and new bikes on motorcycles.autotrader.com and buy a usedmotorcycle.com. And then also my advice is to talk to others in your area that ride if you can. Like they're going to know someone that's selling a bike. Maybe they're selling a bike. So definitely check out anybody, like any biker bar and just be like, is anyone selling a bike? Because I'm interested in riding. And they'll be like, no, get out of here. Or they'll be like, yeah, actually. More than likely, they'll be like, yeah, actually, please buy my bike because I'm a nice person. The misconception of me being a mean biker is invalid. All right, biker groups and websites. Motorcycleroads.com. You can search for routes, events, and so much more. It's actually a really helpful website, so check that one out. Newmotorcycleriders.com is also helpful, but Scooters for Newbies, I've got to give it up to Renee. Awesome collection of resources. So I'm linking that, and I'm linking her like collection of resources for new riders. She's got a good YouTube channel, and she's also just got like a big list of things that you'll need if you want to just start riding. So check out those websites. And I want to give a special shout out to the Litas. I have not ridden with them, but this is a female riding crew with chapters all over the world. So they're really cool. They all ride motorcycles together and they all look really badass doing it. I'm not going to lie. Maybe that's what's kept me away because I was like, can I join the Litas? But I think I will. I just really haven't. I just haven't had time. But anyway, check them out, especially if you're a female just getting into biking. And another special shout out, like a very close to home shout out for me. Vietnam Bikers is the tour company that I went through. They really have been impacted by COVID. So if you are going to Vietnam and you're trying to motorbike, please check them out, vietnammotorcycletours.com. I went the Hanoi to Mai Chau route, and it was just like an overnight homestay. It was super cool. It was just absolutely gorgeous, but I know that they have even longer and more beautiful routes too. So check them out. With that, I would love to open it up for questions. If anybody has any, please let me know.
Oh, fantastic, Maria. So many good ideas there. I was just trying to type some of your links into the chat so that people can click on them very easily because there's some great resources there. Yeah, 3 or 4 questions I've got written down already. A reminder, if you've got any questions to ask, pop them in the chat now. I've got it open in front of me. Maya says her head is blown. She's so excited. Absolutely right. I'm thinking of going on eBay immediately and buying one of these.
I'm gonna stop sharing because I'm just awkward and okay. We'll just look at each other.
No, that's great. Someone asked, are there any brands you're loyal to for bike gear or any brands you recommend specifically?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like I'm gonna have to follow up on that because I don't actually know what my brand is. Grant, do you know? Where did I get my helmet? Sorry, I guess I'm not that brand loyal at the end of the day. I don't really.
No, that's fine. That's okay.
However, I'm sure that any like mom and pop store that you'll find like a good helmet at, it's gonna be a nice one.
Yeah, helmets especially. You got to go in store to try those on. I would not recommend ordering them online because it's tough to get the right fit, especially if you have a lot of hair like Maria.
Very true. I bought the wrong helmet size and I had to go up one because I was like, this is literally like pressing on my forehead. So go try them on.
Do you think that's advice for all bike gear, is to try it on as opposed to order online? Do you think that's, I know some things you can just get off the peg, can't you? But other things are more important to be sort of well fitted.
Yeah. Um, I would say helmets are probably the most important to try on. Like you have a general sense of how big your hands are if you go for a small glove or something like that. And then, you're probably going to want to go get a nice leather coat and try it on and look in the mirror. So like just that's something that's at your discretion. I would say with bikes, if you can meet up with like a used seller and you can ride it around a parking lot or something and just make that decision, that would be the most helpful. So like try not to, 2 feet in, buy a bike, dabble, like try a couple and then see if it's the right bike for you and if it seems like the right size for you.
That's some good advice, I think. So if you rent a motorbike in Asia, do you need a license or do you need to do the qualification that you mentioned? Is that important?
I don't believe so. You typically can just rent a bike whenever you touch down. Like you don't really need any sort of licensing, but it'll vary, I'm sure, between Asian countries. But Southeast Asia seems to be like the most lenient because they are just very open to tourism, and with tourism comes people needing transportation.
Would you recommend it though, in your experience, or did you just jump on and get on with it?
Yeah, we just jumped. We just jumped and got on with it. I would say the international driver's license is a good idea. Like even for experiences, we were in Japan and they had this random, like you can go like Mario karting through the Tokyo streets and you need a international driver's license in order to do that. So like even for things where you're just, hey, I'm in Tokyo. What can I do? That prevented us from being able to do that because we didn't have that license. So I would say you might as well get it if you know that you'll be traveling and you might just want to jump on random opportunities like that.
Good advice. Yeah, yeah. So what were some of your biggest fears, or did you have any fears at all when you started this sort of adventure? Was there anything you were scared of?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm always scared, like, I'm not great at directions. So, like, I'm scared that I'm going to get lost and then I might just like pop onto a highway randomly and be like, oh no, what do I do? So, what I think I see one about like my phone. So, what we did is we have like this little phone holder. It's like my handlebars are here and then my phone holder is right below like the dash in between my legs. So, I can at least like screw my phone in and use it for directions on like routes that I'm not as familiar with. So that's something that I would recommend trying to do. Um, but like in addition, obviously I was afraid because I haven't grown up on a bike. And so my level of comfort it varies depending on like the route that I'm in or like if it had rained recently, I get a little bit nervous about that. I get a little bit nervous about riding manual because I still, although I know how and I've been on trips, that knowledge kind of goes to the wayside when you don't practice it for a while. So it's best to sort of,
Mm.
take those lessons or like borrow someone's bike or like continuously try to practice so that that information will come back to you whenever you most want it. So that
So
was,
speaking about that, then, are there sort of weather conditions that you would think, I'll leave the bike at home and take a car if you can, or take a taxi or a bus or another means of transport?
um, yeah. Yeah, I mean if it's rainy, like just my advice is always check the weather forecast because you just don't really want to get caught in the rain. We have definitely been caught in the rain before, like in Cincinnati and stuff, and it's fine because you usually will have new tires, just like a car, you change your tires as often as you can to get that tread and make sure that like you're as safe as possible on those slick roads. But driving on gravel, driving in the rain, like driving in the snow are not ideal conditions. So you try to avoid them as much as you can, unless you feel like really certain in the place that you are. Like if you know that route really well and you're like, there's no potholes there, I'll be fine. Or, if there are potholes, then maybe think about a different destination or like a different way home.
Yeah, really interesting. I think you're absolutely right. Maria, this has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed it. I've got a lot from it. And I think looking at the smiling faces on the cameras and the amount of people putting comments in while she was speaking, I think a lot of us did as well. Thank you. It's been brilliant.
Awesome. Yeah, does Tracy have her hand up?
Don't know.
Okay. Well, if not, happy to answer any more questions. And if not, thank you guys so much for coming and listening. Yeah, those are my links, and I'm happy to send out this presentation afterwards as well, so we can all share it and get a lot more females and a lot more new motorbikers on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of those things about the organized tours that I think we're really interested in, I'm going to put some research into, because I think I'd be a bit apprehensive doing it on my own, a long trip, but having someone to sort of guide me through it and some companions whilst I'm making that journey, I think would be quite reassuring.
Yeah, actually that leads me to, it was a fear of mine, I guess, to go to a country and just like try to navigate on my own. Like I said, I'm not necessarily good at directions. So like, especially in Vietnam, I'd be like completely lost. So I totally recommend going with a local tour company. The one that I did was $100 US. It really was nothing compared to how secure I felt. Navigating huge mountains and making sure that I got to my destination okay. Plus, they just have so many cool local insights. So definitely go with a local tour company, and that'll make you feel a lot more confident on the bike too.
Yeah, definitely good advice. I'll be saving that for sure. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm just gonna wrap up